I wonder where it came from.
Don't say it out loud.
No, I won't. I'll never divulge.
Oh, no.
All right.
Morning,
So,
everybody.
yep. Got anybody on yet? We will. I promise. We have a bunch of texts. I know what's coming, and we're glad to be here this morning. We'll get started for TV here in just a little bit. Just give me the cue back in the studio when you get our signal, and we'll be ready to go.
Hey, interesting day yesterday. We'll talk a lot about that in maybe the first hour. We'll carry it over the entire 2 hours with the reclassification, the split of public and private. It was a day that I didn't see coming. I'll be real honest with you, but there's no way for me to know what's coming. I'll start with that, Brett.
Right.
You don't know what's coming. Brett's not on the central board. We do the radio network for the state. We try to do as good a job.
I'm on enough.
Yeah, I am too. We try to do as good a job as we can, just covering the games. But
I think he said we're up. So hey, if you'll just let us know 30 seconds before, so we don't just roll in. Welcome into the Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR's Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We are here with you every Saturday for a couple of hours, and we're glad that you joined us. And we know some of you on a cold, nasty, rainy, sleety, freezing rain, wherever you are, kind of day. You're probably not up at 7 o'clock, and I don't blame you, but some of you are trickling in right now on social media, and there may be a lot of you just sitting there in the bed watching us on TV right now in the warmth of your covers or blankets or whatever. So we're glad that you joined us. We're going to take you through a lot here in 2 hours on this Saturday. We've got a guest coming on. Our superintendent from Alexander City will be on with us at 7:30, and Dr. Jose Reyes, and he is about as he dives into this about as much as any superintendent I've ever worked with or any administrator, and looking at numbers and what they mean and all. There's so many elements that go into what decides where a team ends up every 2 years, what class they're in, first of all, and then what region they end up in that class depends on a lot. So especially if you're borderline, and depending on why did I go in that region versus why am I not in this region, a lot of times it has to be, has to do with geography or whatever. But anyway, we're going to dive into that. I've got some maps, the geographical maps that'll show everybody kind of what the HSA had to work with the teams that were available, the way they broke it down. I do have some questions. I know you got some questions. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Are there a lot of people upset this morning? There are. I've seen upset from different angles. And so we'll talk through all of it. We'll take your comments on social media, obviously Facebook and YouTube out there. So let's get rolling. There's a lot to get to.
Well, I wanted to start with one that I got several questions from. Of course, yesterday we were getting hit from all angles, but one of the questions was not necessarily public-private split. It was, why is my team in said region having to travel to another team in that region? And Brett will have some graphics he'll pop up as we move along in the show today, but I'll just start with the one that Brett and I cover in Benton Russell. We're in 5A. Our region's really in the Montgomery area. There's one little team out in East Alabama in Russell County that's got to be picked up by somebody, and they fit best for us. All of this is worked out, by the way, and don't let me use a technical term, Brett, but all of this is worked out, by the way, using software system that doesn't have this board of control in there just saying, I wonder where Rehoboth is going to play, or I wonder where Russell County and who they're going to play. When you look at these maps, you can kind of tell exactly the reason the decisions were made. Now, I'll start with this one because this is the 5A region that we're in. Look at Rehoboth in the bottom right-hand corner of your page. Rehoboth is easily as close to us as they are that Mobile region, Brett. And the Mobile region's covered. You know, that's their 8 region teams right there on top of one another. Would we all want that? Of course. Everyone would want that. I mean, I don't know who in this state wouldn't like to just travel 30 minutes to get to all of their games. They would. But unfortunately, this state is spread out, and the larger schools in this state are in a certain area, which you see Montgomery right there with quite a few. And then you've got these outliers. And the outliers, Brett said last night, a lot of them are in the southeast portion of the state. You got the Dothans, the Enterprise, the Rehoboths, wonderful communities, great sports in those communities, top to bottom, girls and boys. But somebody's got to go travel to them. So you see the colors with the regions there, Brett, and I'll let you chime in. We've had Rehoboth in our region before, and it was the exact same reason then. And I think we were playing in Class 5A when we had Rehoboth the last time that they were in our region. Coach Horn was our coach, and remember very well those 2 years playing that Rehoboth team. Ben Russell's a little bit north of most of those schools that you see in that geographic vicinity. And you may look over at Chilton County to our right towards Brett and say, well, maybe they're a little bit more south of us, but they're also in a much closer and easier driving distance to get to those that are in the orange with the rest of their region in that Birmingham. So I think it goes a long way, Brett. And I had a question last night, why Rehoboth? It's hard to explain that until you actually see it on a map and you go, okay, well, I don't know what you expect to do with that team down there all by themselves. Probably how many miles is that away, Brett? That's maybe 130 miles away.
Probably. Yeah.
I mean, don't let me act like I'm the key over here. Somebody that can't get from one spot to the next, maybe worse than anybody ever. Thank the Lord for GPS with how ignorant I am with directions. But yeah, that's just one example. Now there's
right.
You go to AA in the private school classification.
Yeah, let's go
that's
there.
A nightmare.
I want to, they're called regions. And I think again, as you can see in the new 5A, which was 6A, I want to remind everybody that's watching that they're going, what are they talking about? That may have been in a hole somewhere yesterday and didn't hear everything that was going on. There aren't 7 classifications anymore. There are 6 in the public school side, and there are 2 now on the private school side. So everything just kind of shifted down. The 32 teams that were in 7A for the most part are still the same 32 teams that are now in the new 6A. There's been a couple of flips. I know Spain Park went up. I know Hillcrest Tuscaloosa went down. There may have been a couple more. We'll go through some of this in a minute. We're going to look at the numbers too and where the cutoff were. Look, I can make it real simple. The cutoff was at 64, 63. They just took everybody else, which I disagree with. And I'm just one person, but I heard a lot of other people say the same thing. Maybe you dive into it, but I haven't really looked at the numbers. We'll see, how that plays out. But I want to go to this AA. And when you look at that, I don't know if you call that region. You need to come up with another term because you ain't in a region. You're just in the same state. And, with only 16 teams in the whole thing.
And that's all that makes sense to do, by the way.
I don't. But then, then it goes back to when you're sitting down and you're really looking at this from the split standpoint, you go, that ain't real. This is not a good idea. And this should have been done in the planning phases of it. When you look at it and go, well, here are the teams that would be in the AA region for private schools. And guys, does this really make sense to do this for everybody involved? And, I know the same can be said probably for the new 6A, which is, let's see, you got to bear with me a little bit, guys. I'm trying to, all right. It's better, but it's nowhere near to the extreme of that. And then here is 1A, single A, and it's a little better of private, but
because there's more schools.
because there's more schools, there's 4 regions, but there's only 2 regions and there's only 16 schools. I just think, and I had 2 people come up to me last night and say that should have been handled differently in the planning or in the discussion of going, hey, we probably don't need to do this. This probably makes sense for us to look at something else to do.
Well, okay, let's start with why only 16. Because people, Brett, you got to understand, a lot of people out there. I had questions yesterday that you and I may think's normal, everyday discussions that we have, but they don't know why teams are chosen to be in which classes. It's almost like they think that all the coaches and admins go into a room and say, I think Lee Scott needs to be in AA just because I think Lee Scott needs to be in AA. That's not how it works. It's an enrollment number. And now the private schools with the split, they're not playing with a multiplier. They're not playing with a competitive balance. The only thing they're playing with is an enrollment number. And what does that mean? That means 9th through 11th grade, 3 years. Of course, the 12th grade's gone, so they don't count into that number. But 9th through 11th grade, what's your enrollment number in total students in those 3 classes? And the reclassification, which is every 2 years, goes by that, and those numbers are issued into the state. And Brett, you speak up, but the state can access those numbers on your system too. It's not like out of random a superintendent just throws a number out there. No, you've got a certain day that you go in and you see total number of students in each grade, and you can pull that number up. So the problem with AA with the private schools, and it's the reason that my understanding, a lot of these private schools decided to split away from AISA when they did, is travel. Now, it may not be the only reason, but it's a big reason. And if you look at this map, you understand what that reason is, because this is not just, in other sports, this is not just Friday night, Brett.
It's multiple trips a week.
Let's talk about let's talk about Glenwood for a second. Glenwood, as you see on that far eastern side of the state, they're going to be going all the way to Mobile for 5 of their 7 region games.
Well, over 2 years. They won't make them all in 1 year because they'll split going back and forth. But some will come to them and they'll go to them. But hey, vice versa, it's the same for those schools.
That's right. So if you look at that travel distance for Glenwood and Lee Scott over there, because Lee Scott's going all the way to Huntsville, Glenwood's going all the way to Mobile. But you look at the map, Brett, because that's the top 16 schools, and you may ask, why only 16? And then the single A's got so many more. It's the discrepancy in enrollment. There's not that many large private schools in the state of Alabama.
And that was one of the biggest topics coming into this whole thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Is that you can't just say, let's just throw all the privates over here, because there's very few large private. A lot of them are grouped in that probably 1A to 3A range is where a majority of them fall. And then the largest one was McGill-Toolen, which was a 6A, but
sometimes
they were
7.
But they were playing up in that size. In reality, enrollment wise, they're more like a 5A. So, we got to go to break on TV. Just bear with us, everybody. We're going to have to take these breaks on time to keep on track, because we could talk straight through this. So continue discussions, but we won't leave you behind on TV. I promise we'll come back and always catch you up. So up against our first break, stay tuned. A lot more to come right after this.
As we keep going, I just want to stress out there to everyone that Brett and I aren't involved at all in these decisions, and I'm definitely not for the next hour and 45 minutes acting like I've got the answers to all of these questions. This is a really difficult decision. And anybody from the state, I don't care if it's Will Ainsworth and Governor Ivey or whoever it is that thinks that they've got all the answers to the issues that's going to make everybody in this state happy, you're crazy. I mean, it's a difficult decision to make. But back to that AA, Brett, it's almost like the college side. Tell me the set of rules that I'm choosing from and let me make my decision based on that. Because if you are Glenwood and Lee Scott, and I can completely understand with their decisions, Brett, you would want to entertain other options now. I bet there's a lot of private
Well,
schools that would
well,
like to entertain other
they
options
may,
now.
and they may. I mean, just because you've had the reclass doesn't mean. Look, if you make changes or you say I'm getting out or I'm going to do something else, now you've got schedules that are going to be messed up. You got plans. Tony brings up a good point right here while we're talking about Glenwood. Prattville, look at that map right there
Yep.
for 6A. I mean, look at them down right there by Montgomery. And then every single team they play is way up the interstate into Birmingham and then parts beyond, one over in Tuscaloosa and one on up beyond the northern part of Birmingham. So it's again, you're going to have smatterings of that everywhere. There's only 32 teams in 7A.
But look at that cluster, though, Brett. Let's all use a little common sense here. They got to pull one of those teams from that middle area to make up the 8 that's needed for the region. So which one do they choose? They choose the
unless they choose to just go with a 7-team region and
well, like here's where the discussion on do I choose to just go with 56 teams in one classification and 59 in another, and is that a moving target all the time? I'm not saying that anyone cannot come up with a better idea. The only thing that I would push back on that is where do you draw that line every year? Is there an exact percentage of students that you expect to only be in class? Like, are you saying anything above a 70% difference is unfair in that classification? Because I can definitely get behind that. Because you and I grew up in a school that was, what were we, Brett? 170% smaller than the would that be right? I mean, I would say that if we had 800 students to 750 students, the top of our classification our entire life had 2,000. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
Right.
I don't like it. Trust me. No, I despise it.
Well, we got 30 seconds, just by the way.
But we did always have, unless my memory's not correct, there was a set number in each classification that didn't move. And 6A was always 64. Now, hell, we 58 out of 64 most of those times. Yeah. Would if they would have said, I'm gonna cut it at 56 this year, would that have helped us and benefited us? Oh my gosh, yes. Because when we finally did drop to 5A, when Brett was calling ball games and winning championships.
Yep. Let me get back.
We were the largest school.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We are glad that you've joined us here on the show. Again, for all of you that are watching on TV statewide, we appreciate it so very much. Obviously, we'll go to break every 12 to 14 minutes for you guys. For our partners on TV, we stay up the full entire 2 hours on social media with YouTube and Facebook. The hot topic, obviously, yesterday, the reclassification of high school sports here in the state of Alabama. And I was on the phone almost all day yesterday. I was on multiple radio shows. And look, there's not a perfect solution to it. I know there's some people there's a lot of people really, both private and public, that don't like it in the way it went down. We'll see what changes come about even further. This was supposed to happen in December. It got delayed because of the the elements on both sides, the impasse that they were at, and then they finally had to just settle that, hey, this is probably the best thing that we can do right now. And when I look at numbers, I look at the 32 in class 6A now, which Auburn is the top with 2,240 students enrolled. And the bottom of that is Buckhorn at 1,042. That is your 6A 32 teams.
So what's that number, Brett? Is that 110% difference in those top to bottom in class 6A? Yep. Is that fair?
Yeah. And then you got Florence, the number one team in 5A, at 1,036. And then you go down to the bottom, which we saw a tweet on this last night, and these two teams happen to be in the same region. East Limestone all the way down at 520.
So you've got 110% difference in 6A, and you got about 100% difference in 5A.
Right.
So really close to the exact same top to bottom in 6A and 5A.
4A is 519 at Winona, down to Tallahassee. I hate it, man. I feel for all our schools. They're at 326. They're the last one in 4A.
So you got a little over 100 for both 6 and 5. I'm just going to try to run this
Yep.
off, just easy math. Is that 70% there?
Yeah, it's almost 200 for Tallahassee and Winona.
So it's 65 to 70% difference in enrollment in that one. So 4A is better than the first two.
3A is 325 at Pleasant Grove, down to Wilcox Central at 222.
That's again about 60 to 70, about the same as 4.
You see where you could have some more wiggle room on some
you
of these classes?
You could wiggle it 10% one way or another if you chose another 4 teams. But where does that end?
I will say
do
this:
it every year?
when you get down to these classifications, when you're only 100 students difference,
Yeah, but then you're in the same boat that we're in. The reason we're having this conversation is you can't make everybody happy.
Well, nobody's asking everybody to make anybody happy. I'm saying I don't like, and you don't have to agree, nor does anybody else. I don't think you just sit there and take 32 off the top and say, carte blanche, this is how we're going to do it. That's my opinion. Everybody ain't got to agree with that. I'm not asking anybody to agree with it. I know that there's others out there that feel the same way. I hear what you're saying too.
What's the difference in 2A? What's the percentage difference in 2A?
222 to 157.
So that one's about, again, 60 to 70. So your 4, 3, and 2A are about the same. How about 1A? Is 1A the worst?
155 to 30.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking by far the worst. So I mean, you're at well over 200%.
So let's use that rationale. Why would you do that in 1A? Why can't you say we don't need 64 teams in 1A football? And then you go to the geography part of it and go, well, we got to get another thing. No, I mean, you don't just, I mean, seriously. And I know that Amelia L. Johnson High School with 40, and let's go back up to Red Bay with almost 156. I mean, and I'm not saying they'll ever play each other. And that's another thing. That just because you're in the same class doesn't mean you'll ever even cross paths. But I mean, that's hard to put a group down there. Like, okay, so what if you cut it at 30, Randy? What would it look like? What we were talking about with the subclasses within a class? I mean,
how many championship games do you want?
Well, it's not my call.
I'm saying that you and I are, without a doubt, understand how long these events can go. Let's start with basketball. Brett and I live in a gym for 6 days. I mean, we've got producers that are out by a court for a dozen hours for 6 straight days, and that doesn't count the setup. You gonna double that? I mean, because I think you can
restructure the championship stuff where, like, especially in basketball, where you do more in a sub-regional tournament or something like that, where you narrow it down, where you don't have.
I just think there are so many, and I hear you, man. And I wish that I could come up with something that worked out for everybody. But at a certain point, I think you just draw the line and say this is the way we're going to do it and move on. Because everybody's got an opinion on the way that they want those to change. It's like I can fight. You and I read yesterday, and I think you may have been the first one to say something about this that I heard. Is at the top classification, why don't you just split it down the middle? And if there's that big of a difference, you have like a 6A and a 6B and let them play for championship. Well, I can have the exact same fight. You just heard the difference. 5A is just as much of a difference as 6A. Why are you going to do it for 6A and not 5A?
Right.
That's not fair. I mean, 5A is only what
I'm advocate for all of that. I mean, I'm just trying to see what I can do to make it. I'm not trying to give everybody a trophy. And I'm just trying to say that, a school that's got 40 kids versus a school that's got 155 kids to pick from, it's hard, man. And I don't, you want to try to give somebody a legit chance every year when instead of every year they roll around, they go, well, there's absolutely, unless I've got Cam Newton down here, I've got no chance in this classification. Like, I'm talking about 1A as much as we are these bigger classifications, because they tend to get all the pub, and we forget sometimes about the discrepancies probably worse in smaller schools. You ain't got enough kids to pull from. If you're trying to, and I had somebody call me yesterday, and I know I got to get to break, said, look, there's some schools now that are even contemplating whether they're even going to play football or not. Because, by the time they get 3 or 4 games in the season, they get a couple guys hurt, can't field the team. You and I've witnessed that with a team.
When you only have 40 kids in your top 3 grades and 20 of those are boys, that's probably not the sport for you to do anyway.
Yeah, it's exactly right. But you got some on the borderline that are that way too, that, even on up in classifications, you get a few guys hurt.
Well, the pushback that I would have on that is that's always been the case. I mean, that was the case in 1977 when Brett and I were born, and it's the case now. If you're that small a school playing that sport, and you're playing against someone that's got triple the amount of boys to choose from to pull for a football program.
Yes, you could say that about 6A too.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, man. When you've got 550 boys to choose from at the top end of that class, all the way down. I'm talking about 5A, 550 boys, all the way down to 250 boys at the bottom end of the class. It's a massive, massive difference. But Brett, if I was an administrator, which I'm not, hat on, and how many classes you want? You got to cut it somewhere. You can't play 20 state championship games to appease everybody. It's impossible.
No,
you're never going to appease everybody.
That's right. I'm not on here to try to do that. I'm just on here to see what you can do since you're reclassifying and doing all this stuff. I do think there's some things that could be done better. That's just my take. All right, we got to get to break. We got Dr. Jose Reyes coming up at 7:36. So we're going to get to break, have another segment, and have him on just to kind of give his take, because he's highly involved in this from a state aspect, and he's got some really good points because he crunches numbers all the time. So, all right, stay tuned. More of the Saturday Sports Countdown coming your way right after this.
Still don't see those AA numbers, Brett.
I don't have them. I don't have the let me see where
Yep, we played Stanhope awful lot over the years, Tony. Normally a really good game too. Stanhope and Ben Russell athletically match each other. A lot of sports. I've had some great ones over the years. Stanhope had a great year last year. That would be a good one. And Wetumpka back in the region, Brett, for Ben Russell.
I'm fine with it.
Long time.
I'm fine with it. I like the region we're in. I think it's very competitive. I like getting these teams back. I mean, it's not that I don't like playing Helena and Chelsea and Calera and all those teams, but I grew up, you grew up with Stanhope, Wetumpka. That's where I'd rather be, and that's where we are, and that's good. We'll go through some of the regions as we go through the show. We've all seen Will Ainsworth's comments. Heath, I mean, I don't know, he can just bring out a magic wand, I guess, for everybody and solve all the problems. Like, I don't know. What else?
I mean, all of this is just my quick opinion, especially when we're down. All of this stems back to those CHUSAC funds. And do you allow kids that transfer into private schools to play right when they get there? And, my take has been, you're not going to win that fight in the court of battle. I just don't see how, if they want to allow parents to use those CHUSAC funds, that you're going to be able to win that. That's just my opinion, and maybe you can. But I think at the end of the day, the legislature jumping in there and saying, no, the CHUSAC students that do use these funds are eligible to play day one when they go to the new school. I see both sides. My problem all the way around, especially sitting in the role that Brett and I sit in, is am I behind closed doors talking to Brett? Do I have a real passionate plea for one way or the other? Yes, but the reason that I do is probably personal.
All right, I've got your numbers in Double A.
It's probably a big difference, maybe the worst.
McGill-Toolin's 483.
Yeah,
and Glenwood's 191.
it's the worst.
You
Other
got
than
30, got 30 seconds.
Where's Lee Scott?
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Wow. What is that? Is that 140%?
Lee Scott's 207.
They're exactly like Glenwood.
Yep. Indian Springs is 206. And they don't play football, by the way. So
yeah.
Man,
well, let's go to the what
we got 4. Here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We will take your comments on YouTube and Facebook. Man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And let me add another disclaimer out there. We know this goes out on Saturday mornings on our Auburn Blitz channel. And I without a doubt, without hesitation, get at least one comment from somebody every Saturday. Well, I thought this was an Auburn channel. Why are you doing? If you don't look on Saturdays, we do a crossover type show where we talk about a lot of things. It's Auburn heavy. But if you get on here and you tune in, and I'm trying to be cordial, if you pull up the broadcast and we're talking about something you don't want to talk about or listen to, it's real simple. I just log off, and I'll be back with you on Monday for all Auburn. Monday through Friday, that's all I do. And that's what Faith and I concentrate on 90% of the time. But on Saturdays, we have, like some of these other podcasts, crossover shows, different guests. I know I'm using this as an opportunity to say, don't waste your time typing some crude comment. I'm well aware of what content goes out on our channels. So maybe I'll stop one of those comments. Maybe I'll stop one of those comments.
Well, and maybe a lot of new people that are tuning in, it's a good time to say what this is. Television show. It's a television show that we've done for 20 plus years in the state of Alabama. It's been on statewide television, back to Charter Network when we first started it. This was before podcasts, and it's one that we want to continue to do. And we've been on a number of radio stations around the state. We have the HSA radio network, which we're in year 18 of. So high school sports is very, very important to both of us. We love Auburn too.
But I just feel like I need to do that disclaimer.
Yeah.
So I just for those that feel like they want to type something. Okay. All right. So, again, we'll have Dr. Jose Reyes with us in the next segment. The AA numbers for the private schools are pretty bad. I mean, there's nothing else you can say. I mean, you really stretched getting 16 teams in this thing. I'll be honest. I mean, you probably shouldn't have done it. I'm just going to say. That's just my take. I mean, you already only have 2 regions, and they're not really regions. You spread out from can to can. And McGill-Tulane has got 483 students. Briarwood's got 426. You and I knew those would be the top
2 largest. Yes.
And then you get Glenwood down there, who just moved into the HSA 2 years ago at 191. And on top of it, not only are they the smallest, they got to drive, like they have by far the worst driving of anybody every week.
Them and Lee Scott.
Yeah, Lee Scott's not much better. It's a tad bit better, but Glenwood is by far wins the prize of worst travel. And I see Dr. Reyes come in on the queue down there. Coach, if you'll just wait with us for about 3 more minutes, we're going to take a break for TV, and then I'll bring you in. So just kind of give you a little bit more time to prep down there. But that's where this is.
Well, let's give the thought process here, Brett. If you're sitting in the room, you're trying to make a decision on how we're going to split this thing out. The problems, there's not a lot of large private schools in the state. You see the numbers there. There may be, if you're going off of what Brett said, you may only have 6 to 8 teams that legitimately are within say a 70 to 80% difference in students. And then once you get outside of that, you would have to make a AAA, which is here's the funny part. All they're doing is doing what AISA's already had. They've
That's it. I mean, you're just recreating the wheel.
And the Glenwoods and Lee Scott should be in some kind of AA. That's just my opinion. But you don't have look. Everybody's getting what they ask for here.
Okay, the geography and the numbers, to me, combined, if me and you were sitting in there trying to plan, I'm just using this as an example. The geography and the numbers, I would just look at you, Randy. I don't know what's your opinion. I would look at you and say, oh, this is not feasible. This doesn't make sense for not just one reason, but for multiple reasons. Number one, we don't have enough to make a legit class. Okay. Yeah. Number two, the geography, when you add that in, just to me is the nail in the coffin, saying we need to do something different. We don't need to go roll this out there because this is not beneficial for really anybody involved. I'm not saying for the whole reclass. I'm talking about for the way this private thing was done. And I know there's people that wanted it split and they couldn't come to an agreement on certain elements. So they felt like they needed to create. Now, again, that's just their region. They've got to play those games, right? For the championship side of things, they can play other teams during the regular season closer to them if they can land 3 more teams that are closer. But overall, I think you agree that this doesn't really, especially in the AA private side where you only have 2 regions and they're so spread out like this, it doesn't make sense.
Well, but again, what are you asking everyone to do if you draw a line in the sand and say, if you're not happy with this rule right here, then we're splitting. Okay. Well, let's split then. Now we're split. Now we look at
I just think that's like what I'm saying is everybody, when they were having their arguments on either side, should have
conceded certain things.
Should have sat down and looked and said, "This ain't good for anybody."
Anybody that looks has got to. I mean, put yourself in a parent's shoes that's at Glenwood.
That's what I'm doing right now.
And don't. I agree. I'm vouching for you here. Put yourself in. And I'm not talking about football on a Friday night at the end of the school week. I mean, soccer.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
The option I would have is, can we find a spot in the middle that will let us use their facilities at a cost?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate that you have to think that way, but it's the way I would be thinking right now.
I mean, you'd have to do something. Let's get to break. We come back. We'll have Dr. Reyes from the Alexander City School System was superintendent, dives into this, been in multiple school systems, had to do it for a large school system in Calhoun County. So he's been all over the state in multiple school systems. He can see it from multiple different perspectives. So stay tuned. More to come here on the Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Hey, guys.
Good morning, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I can fix all of this for y'all if y'all just let me.
Oh, we're gonna listen to you.
I know exactly. I know exactly what to do.
Hey, Coach, reminder: we're up on social all the way through, so YouTube and Facebook. Everybody's still got people watching, so we can conversate during the breaks about this, and then we pick it back up on TV. So. Good.
Well, I think the worst thing, and let me start off, and I would say this when we go live. Mr. Harmon and the Central Board of Control, no matter what decision they made, somebody was going to be mad. So let's make sure that we put that out there right now.
Amen.
And I know this from, I tell people this all the time. Every decision you make is just an opportunity for somebody else to hate you. And so it would not have mattered what they did. There are going to be people that are angry. And for people to believe that a perfect answer is out there, well, then you don't even need to be in the conversation because you're not being realistic. We can talk about this. I think there are some things, a lot of things about this realignment that are very, very positive, and I'll discuss those things. And then, Randy, you talked about some of the private school issues. There's some positive and some negative there, but the travel obviously is a major issue with the private schools. But I also want to just remind people again that what you just said, anytime we go into a discussion about an issue, there's always going to be two sides. And this is what I've always believed is if one side is win-win for them and lose for the other, then you have a conversation. And so what you have to do is you have to have both sides where they can win and lose at the same time. That's compromise. And so for anyone, public or private, to lay down an ultimatum that if you don't do this, then we're going wherever. And again, I'm not saying it public or private said that. I wasn't in the meetings, but if either side said that this is the ultimatum and there was no room for movement, then you can't have a discussion, Randy and Brett. You just can't.
No.
I think that's where we are, Jay. I'll just be honest. I feel like that it all started with that stance. And I can go both ways. I'm not sitting here and saying that Choose Act funds, because I think used in the right way,
30 seconds, guys.
The Choose Act is a really good thing for certain families out there.
Sure.
And around this country, it's an outstanding option for, say a kid that's in a failing school system, that's been a failing school system for 50 years, maybe 25 years, to have an option to go and do something else. But I also know firsthand what can happen if a really innovative coach or administration gets a hold of that and uses
5 seconds.
So, okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. Not a lot of sunshine out there for everybody today. Just want to remind everybody to be safe over the weekend, wherever you are tuning us in. Want to welcome in Dr. Jose Reyes, the superintendent at Alexander City. And again, Dr. Reyes has been the superintendent at multiple school systems. He's been all over the state. You just left a system a couple of years ago in Calhoun County. It had a lot of schools in it, a lot larger than the Alexander City school system. So you've seen this from having to deal with multiple schools down to one school. And so there's a lot of different ways that you look at it. And but we appreciate you jumping on with us this morning, hopefully for a couple of segments, if we can keep you on.
I'd love to be on.
To discuss this reclassification that went on yesterday. This is something that you guys have to deal with every 2 years that affects all the student athletes, not just in football, but it affects all the sports. And that's what Randy brought up this morning. We just seem to look at things through football glasses a lot of times, but you start looking at how the spring sports will be reclassed too. This is just fall right now, like volleyball, those type sports. The travel thing really kind of dominates the conversation, not just in the private side, but in the public side as well. Yeah.
Well, and again, while we were at break, again, difficult decisions for Mr. Harmon and the Central Board, and whatever decision they make, there's going to be somebody angry, but there are some negatives to every decision, positives to every decision. And like you said, I've had the opportunity to be at 5 and 6A city school systems. I've had the opportunity to be at a county system with multiple 2, 3, and 4A schools. I taught at GW Long for 7 years, 1A, 2A. You remember some of those baseball teams at Long.
Some pretty good ones down there.
Yeah, and 30 years of being involved as an athletic director, high school principal, coach, and official. I don't say this braggadociously, but I don't know if there's anybody that's ever been a part of, as a fan, a player, a parent, or administrator or official. Guys, I've been involved in tens of thousands of games in one way or another. But from a public school standpoint, I think that in my opinion, that this is almost perfect for public schools. Now, again, I'm not, we'll talk about privates in a second. But from a public school standpoint, I think it's almost perfect in that what it did was, and coming from a county school system in Calhoun, you actually 4A and below, that's really where, for the public schools, the private school conversation comes in. You really don't hear a lot 5, 6, 7A, the discussion of private schools, because things definitely even out because of the number of athletes that you have at those schools. So what my friends are saying in the 4A and below is that it actually gives their kids a chance to be successful, gives them an opportunity. It doesn't guarantee that, but it gives them an opportunity to go into a season believing I have a chance, not only in football, but really specifically in the what I would say minor sports, the golf, the tennis, the volleyball, et cetera. It gives them a chance. Now, the only thing to me from a public school issue that I would have liked to have seen was to stay 7 classes, because if you'll notice in the 5A class, it is the second largest class. Last year, 6A was the second largest, and there was an 81% difference in 6A this year between the largest and smallest school. Now what we've done is the second largest class, which is now 5A, has changed, and it is now 99% larger from the largest to smallest. In 4A, it's 59%. In 3A, it's 46. And in 2A, it's 40. In those classifications, you can feel like you have a chance. But if you'll take that 5A and look at the bottom 20, and we talk a lot about football, if you look at the bottom 20 in that classification, there's probably only 1 or 2 teams that have a chance, us at Benjamin Russell being one of them, to be successful. But most of those programs, this is going to be absolutely devastating for them. Quite frankly, and some of those programs, if I had a child that was playing, I would look for another location to move to, or my child just would not play. When you have Douglas having to play Clay Chalkville, guys, somebody's going to get hurt. And what I would have liked to have seen is keep the 7A. They did a good job of reducing the percentage difference in 1A. The previous classification, for all those listening, it was a 275% difference between the largest 1A and smallest 1A. This move has moved it to 178%, which is better. And you're always going to have the smallest school there, so you'll always have an issue with that, and you'll always have an issue on the top end at 7A because you have the largest school. But if we had have kept it at 7A, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would have all been somewhere in the 55% range of difference between size. And then I think you give people a chance. So that 5A classification, guys, is really, really tough. But 4A and under, you actually gave a lot of those schools out in the county an opportunity to be a winner. That's what you did. And I think that's a great thing from the public school side.
No, I agree. I mean, if you hear the numbers right there from Jay, the biggest problem is that discrepancy in number. How much is the 6A now, Jay?
Right, so 6A last year was 7A last year was 102% larger, and now 6A is 114%. Yeah. Again, not necessarily ideal, but whenever you have an Auburn high school that's at the top, just like
Hoover,
and Hoover, and then at the bottom you have A.L. Johnson with they have 41 students this time. You're always going to have a bigger difference in the extremities. But again, mathematically speaking, then you have to look in the middle, median, and let's try to have the other classes as close as they can be. Because to say that we have to have the same number of teams in each classification, clearly we can have a classification with 32. We already do that. So that is the only, again, concern that I have. Is that you're going to, and people can look at the list, the Douglases, the East Limestones, the Chilton Counties, the Springvilles, and those places. Guys, I feel really, really sorry for them because it is going to be a rough 2 years.
There's always going to be a cut line somewhere where somebody's the lowest, like Tallahassee right now. I mean, I feel for Tallahassee. I do. I mean, because, we've been there so many times. We live there. It seems like we live on the bottom of that. Yeah. So I sympathize with all the schools that end up being right there on the border. But I think your plan and what you said is kind of what I've been saying. And I don't have I'm not none of us have a magic wand, and we're just throwing out what we feel like would be best. But when you have extremes on either side, and then you've got some that are 40, 50%, like you said, we're not trying to make it where everybody takes a trophy home. We just want to make it where you feel like, if you want to talk about competitive balance, I guess you could use that term across, not that it means across all classifications, for when you step into that sport every year, you feel like you got at least a legit shot to compete.
Yeah,
and let me throw this in here to Jay, because I do think
we got to get to break real quick, okay, and then I'll let you keep your thoughts rolling on that. Let's get to break. Stay tuned. A lot more to come here on the show right after this.
There was 2 or 3 points of emphasis that I'd like to get your take on. We can do them here in the break because a lot of people staying up with us. One is, Jay, talk about the difference in a county and city school, and resources and the discussion that goes with that. Because I hear that over and over again. I don't know if there's anything that you can do with that, but the problem that a lot of the county schools have had is with the resources, with the facilities, with the coaches that you can afford to go out there and get. Of course, in this transient society that we live in, people are going to find their way to your community, and those communities, like Alabaster, want that to happen. And I'm just pointing them out because they're, I think, the poster child of anywhere from mediocre to below average athletics 10 to 12 years ago to one of the, in every sport, not just football, in every sport, one of the best athletic programs in the state. City school, amazing facilities. Can you, having been in both, tell the difference to people that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly the city school systems do have the capability of providing more in terms of facilities. And I'm not saying that that's not an argument, but I don't think it's an argument to the extent that some people would believe, because coming from Calhoun County, we're now, if I were still there, we're 4A, 3A, and 2A. So if you think about this, man, how many city systems are there 4A and below? If you look at the new classification, there's not that many. So basically now when you're looking at, for example, in 1A, 2A, and 3A, see how many city systems you have in 1A, 2A, and 3. That's not an argument because they are competing against the same type of schools. Gotcha. Weaver, Ohatchee, Walter Welborn, they're not playing Benjamin Russell. They're not playing Scottsboro City. They're not playing Thompson. They are playing, for the most part, county school systems. Now, you could throw a Piedmont, you could throw a Winfield, you could throw a few, but there's so few and far between that argument in the lower divisions, and it would move up even into 4A some.
30 seconds, guys.
That doesn't hold water. Now, in the upper divisions, yes, there are some issues there, but even in the upper divisions now, when you're talking about, tell me what Baldwin County schools have that we don't have. Tell me what Jefferson County schools have that are 6 and 7A that we don't have. Tell me what tell me what Madison County schools have. The Bob Joneses. They don't have what we have.
5 seconds, guys.
Oh yeah, they do.
So that argument, you have to be careful how you make that argument.
Sure.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We have one segment left here in the first hour. We have a whole nother hour coming your way, and we still have a lot to get to. We have Dr. Jose Reyes with us, the superintendent in Alexander City, has been superintendent in Calhoun County. He's been superintendent in Scottsboro. He's been all over the place, and he's got great perspective on this from, like Randy just said in the break, from from a county mentality to a city mentality in multiple situations. So I'll let you get back to what you were saying.
Well,
Randy,
we went through county and city, and Jay made great points that pretty much a lot of the county schools from 4A down, that's what they're in. There's not a lot of cities. There are some amazing facilities like Piedmont that we've covered over the years, but for the most part, that's not what you see. But now in 5A and 6A now, there are a lot of city schools there, and it's an arms race. And these cities like Alexander City want to put their kids in the best opportunity for success that they can. And a lot of schools in the last 10 to 15 years have really leaned in on it, and Brett sees it firsthand more than anybody in this state going in and out of these facilities. So that was one. Give your take on the CHOOSE Act funds from a public standpoint, and try to also put yourself maybe in a private school setting that's accepting these CHOOSE Act funds and how that would work out, Jay.
Sure. I think from a public school standpoint, and again, it would not affect Benjamin Russell in that we would not be playing those private schools. Again, it goes back to from a public school, small school, public school viewpoint, is that, if let's just say, for example, and let's just say you have a private school in a large, near a large city, Birmingham, Montgomery, etc. Well, We would like to say that all of us always do the right thing, but the Choose Act money, if it went to a person, and again, I'm a band guy, love the band, but if it went to a tuba player, probably people wouldn't have as much of an issue with it. If it went to a 6'9" kid that could rip the goal off of the supports, that would be a problem. And I think that's the biggest fear from public schools, is that what would happen is that those Choose Act recipients would be have the athletic ability to change the game, and then what that would do is then stack the deck even more against those county 1A, 2A, 3A schools. So I think that's really the main concern that public schools have from that particular topic.
Give me an idea, Jay, just speaking towards those Choose Act funds. I'm interested to hear if you think that if that went to the courts, let's just put that, because I think this may end up in the courts. It reads like if you trust the comments that are coming out, it may end up in the courts. Brett and I had a long discussion on this yesterday.
Sure.
Do you think you could win that battle? I mean, that's a decision that's coming down from the top and on down from government. I don't know how an organization can go and win a battle that's already been decided that's the way that it's going to work.
Right. I just believe that in the end, we, the association, probably will not win that battle in the end. But what I do believe is that if a child is outside of that particular school district, whatever that private school district is, if they are living outside of that private school district, they should have to move into that district just like a public school student. Because again, if they're going to allow that, then what we would need to do is, well, a student that might live in Rockford, they should then be able to be eligible immediately at Benjamin Russell. A student that's at Benjamin Russell that wants to go to Sylacauga and still live in Alex City should be immediately eligible. If you're going to apply that to them, then I think it's only fair to do the same in the reverse or opposite direction. But I think eventually we'll probably lose that battle.
And Brett, if the battle's lost, I only see two options. That's to do what happened yesterday, which is split them apart and say we can't come to an agreement on this. Go do your own thing. Public do their own thing, or do what Jay said and it's just open season for everyone to do what they may. Is that your read, Brett? The more that you talk to people, is that was the line in the sand on both sides that they couldn't come to an agreement on?
That's been the argument all the way around. This whole thing stems from this act. Let's just be honest about it. It was the topic of recruiting back when private schools had the multiplier for a reason, because they had an opportunity to bring students in. So that's why the HSA implemented that. But then private schools had a great argument coming back over the last several years with public schools doing things and bringing kids in. Let's just be honest, get our heads out of the sand and know that it was going on both ways. So then you add this Choose Act in, and then the HSA says, well, you got to sit a year. And they're like, well, no, that's not fair. So that's why all this came about. So I think Jay has a great point on the reversal of this thing. You know, if you're going to say it needs to work this way, for one, it needs to come back in the other direction. It's a two-way street. So I think we're already headed that way, Randy, as much as it pains me to say that we're already in the Wild West a lot of times. And the HSA doesn't have the staff to police a lot of this stuff and go around all over the place. And it's hard. So, you know, what do you do at this point? Well, how do you control all of this stuff? I don't know that anybody has a perfect answer, like we've all said.
Well, I think, guys, what you have to do, and please, for anybody listening, I mean, every place I've been, I understand that I'm going to have some biases towards the place that I am at. But what I also believe that I can do is I truly love public schools, private schools. And the reason I love them is because they have kids in them. And as long as they've got kids in them, I believe that I can take a step back and try to analyze this from both sides. I think about some things that we've talked about with the private schools' concerns of competitive balance. I get where they're coming from. I absolutely do. And let me say this, and some of my public school friends may not like this, but you two guys are Benjamin Russell through and through, and you know how much I love Benjamin Russell. But if we were to win the state championship in football, and then we won it again the next year, and we had to move up, I understand. Because we have showed that we are dominant in that particular classification. And you know what? We need to be challenged. Now, we wouldn't want to stay there forever. We might have to move up and come back down. I have no problem with that. So that's something that a private school person would say, oh my gosh, I've never heard a public school person say that. Well, because I believe it's the right thing to do. But I also think that when you look at, for example, Coosa Christian, again, I'm not against Coosa Christian, but did you see the numbers that they have? 80 kids, like 81 kids. And they went to a mid-level at this point, Pell City High School last year and lost 28-27. And do you know how many kids that Pell City has in the classification? 930 something. You're telling me that a school with 80 students can go and play a 28-27 game against a school that has 930 students, and then we expect Horseshoe Bend to beat Coosa Christian? I mean, we need to be honest about that as well. And that's what, guys, that's what I'm about. Can we not just sit in a room and I'm going to say this, listen, I know there's some ladies in that room too, but most of them are men. Can we stop being so concerned about winning and talk about children and opportunities? Can we do that? And that's really, guys, what bothers me is that both sides, we don't want to have an honest conversation like what I just said. I said something from the private side. I said something from the public side. And that's where we've got to get to, guys, if we want to ever get this thing as right as we can.
I couldn't agree more. We're going to get you to hang around. We are at the top of the hours, which means we have another hour coming your way. So everybody stay with us. More of the Saturday Sports Countdown right after this. I think what you just said is that you got to see both sides.
You do
have to see both sides on all of it. And there are multiple things. This is not just a cut and dry situation.
Oh, no.
And
well, I think, guys, though, the separation in the end may be a good thing because it is going to force us to have the conversations that we should have already had. Okay. So I think that that's going to be a really, really good thing in the long run.
I agree. I mean, I told Brett yesterday, I said at this point, AISA, if y'all tell me if I'm wrong, I didn't grow up in a private school, but it had AAA, AA, and single A. They already had 3 classes. I mean, it's not like they haven't been through these discussions that we're going through now. And, when the 3 of us went through school, there was only a couple of private schools in the state that competed with publics. And I think Briarwood's been in the HSA.
They've been like a charter. They've been like a charter private.
They were in 1983 was the year that they came over. I really feel for them because I'll throw that out there. We played them a lot. I'm sure you've been around them a lot too, Jay, being where you are. To me, Briarwood, for the most part, does it the right way. I've never known Briarwood. I've known of course, they're such a good academic school. You're going to find your way to them. But for the most part, most of the kids that I knew that I'm friends with that went through that school, they started in that school system when they were young. Those are the ones that I kind of – McGill's been there for how long, Brett? Maybe 25 years?
Well, yeah. Coach Salve, was there.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. You think about the rivalries that like Homewood and Briarwood have established over the years that now maybe you don't have a chance to play that game.
In every sport.
Yeah, you may not have a chance to play that game anymore. To me sometimes I think on both the private and the public side, when I look at these and I pull up this AA again, and I know I keep going.
Oh, it's painful.
When I go back to that and I look at this map, I don't know how either side, anybody said that's a good idea. I don't know how anybody looks at that and says that's a good idea for anybody.
Yeah.
Like, so if you say that and you can say that together, you go, well, what is the solution to that? And like what Randy keeps bringing up is that, well, you got people at an impasse is the reason we're at this position anyway.
Yeah.
So, but when you're breaking all this down and trying to make a decision, we got about 15 seconds, by the way. You got to look at that and go, okay, this don't make any sense.
Well, you have too many people again. I know this sounds simplistic, but
All right, Jay, we got 5 seconds. I'm going to let you say what you got to say.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We've got Dr. Jose Reyes with us, the superintendent from Alexander City, and I'll let you continue, Coach.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. We were talking about bringing people together. We all are guilty of this. We let the desire to win somehow that takes the synapses and they don't connect, and we lose our mind, and we can't go into a conversation without winning at all costs. And I think, that's kind of where we are. Go back to, look, you talked about the AA private school. I mean, you look at those numbers, and guys, I've got a lot of that memorized already. I mean, just think about this. Listen, St. Paul's, great program. Steve Mask was there, very well respected, but unless I'm mistaken, isn't it about 272 kids?
St. Paul's.
Yep.
Yeah,
somewhere about 272. Now, if you think about that, St. Paul's would fall in the new classification. If you didn't do a multiplier, they would fall in the 3A classification. Now, can you see them going to Wilcox Central and playing a football game? Does that help anybody?
No,
it doesn't help anybody. And so that, to me, that's why the multiplier was there. And I think, maybe if you ever go back to a situation where we're back together, if you do a multiplier, but then you apply competitive balance to both, maybe that's something that both sides can say, hey, okay, we can agree on that. We'll still do the multiplier, but we're going to do competitive balance throughout. Because, again, I think I'm an Alabama guy. Listen, hate to say this, man, but I hated that we won 6 times in 17 years. I hate to say that.
Yeah. Yeah,
but what happens is anytime you have a program that continually dominates every single year, I know those people are happy, and I would probably be happy too. But guys, it's not good for the sport. It's not, because again, you have all these other people who don't have an opportunity. That's why I'm not against competitive balance for everybody. I'm not.
And you said you were asking about St. Paul's, right? 272.
272. Mars Hill, I think, is 118. That would put them guys 118. Mars Hill, if they were without a multiplier, Mars Hill would come to Horseshoe Bend. Now, nothing against Horseshoe Bend. Good people, love them. But what would a Horseshoe Bend Mars Hill football game look like?
Well, it's the same. The Coosa Christian's the most eye-opening one that you just brought up.
Yeah, that Coosa Christian one is the one that
80 kids.
So we're talking about 40 boys. 40 boys, and all of them have got to be on the football field.
Of course they are.
To put what I saw.
We just saw Coosa Christian at the state championship game, and they were. I mean, they were right there. I mean, I bet they had 40 kids on the sideline, man. Seriously.
Well, and Brett, you and Randy know. Listen, we were together 11, 12 years ago, guys. I've been having this conversation with you guys for over a decade. I mean, I'm very, very passionate about this, and I'm passionate about opportunity, and I'm passionate also about trying to bring people together.
Well, I hate that it's split. I'll be the first one to step out and say I wish some concessions were made on both ends. At the end of the day, maybe the split, and I'll be honest, I was shocked yesterday that it went down the way that it did. I thought at the end of the day, everybody would get in the room and say, this clearly doesn't make sense for these 16 private schools to travel 4 hours to play a basketball game on a Tuesday night.
That's where
I mean, you can throw all the other elements that we brought up, but at the end of the day, those 16, and by the way, those 16 are the biggest discrepancy other than 1A that I see. Yeah. Jay, I think the difference is 450 students at the top all the way down to 190.
Yep.
So 450 to 190 is a massive difference. And
Yep.
And size, I guess the only option, I'll bring that up to you as we kind of finish this thing off. What are the private schools, if they do stay split, what are their options? I mean, the only thing that you can do is grow, I guess, Jay. If
Yep,
you're
that's
Glenwood,
That's
Glenwood, you're like,
you
I got to figure out how
yeah,
to get to 300. It's
yep,
the only option I've got.
that's correct. You have to grow, and that's going to be a facilities issue for them. But
a
staff,
faculty issue.
yeah. But the one thing though that the private schools do have an advantage. If you'll go down that list, there is not a private school in Hackneyville. Okay, there's not one in Rockford. All of them are close to a metropolitan area.
Yeah.
So the one advantage that they do have is that they do have a greater group of young people to actually pull from to come to their schools. And so, I would again, with my programs, my facilities, my academics, I mean, like I've said before, we're a public school. And when we talk about recruiting, we don't talk about going out and sitting down in people's living rooms and begging people to come play for us. But I think whether you're public or private, you've got to hire the best superintendents, the best principals, the best teachers, the best coaches, and provide the best facilities. And you've got to recruit that way. We keep talking about choose. You've got to make your organization the best it can be, so that people will want to come there. And I think a lot of those private schools do have a pretty good advantage because they offer great programs. And I think they're going to, benefit some from this as well in terms of how they grow their program. I do
too. I think it's all great points this morning. If they'd have just all called us, we'd have fixed it, right? I mean, I don't know what the heck everybody was. Why'd they go in a room for a month? But no, I think we all said it as we close out here in this segment with you, Coach, and we appreciate your time this morning on a Saturday. Is that it's not simple. There is no one right answer. And for some legislators and public officials to come on an open forum on social media and just take one shot after another, like, how about let's try to be a solution finder and a mediator rather than an instigator, rather than something that is going to be divisive. And that would be my challenge to anybody that feels like they have the answers. Well, then come to the table outside of what you said just a minute ago, Coach, and just say, well, if you don't do it my way, then we're just gonna blow it all up.
Sure.
Because that's what we've seen from some leaders. If you want to call yourself a leader, if that's your mode of leading, you're not leading. You're coming in there threatening and putting an ultimatum on a group, saying if you don't do it this way, then we're gonna do some things, and that's not the way to handle it.
Yeah, and let me go back to my initial point. Whether it's Heath Harmon, whether it's Alvin Briggs, whether it's Steve Savarese or Dan Washburn, and all the individuals that's been on the Central Board of Control, they have all had difficult decisions to make. And every decision they've ever made, someone's not going to be happy. And that's just the way it is. But I will say this. I have always been a supporter of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. I think it is one of the greatest organizations that has ever come into this state. Is it perfect? No. But those individuals, again, that make decisions, contrary to some people's belief, their job or their desire is not to hurt kids. That's not what their desire is. And anybody that comes out and makes statements like that, again, you need to step back. You need to get winning at all costs out of your head, and let's try to make the most reasonable opportunities for kids to be successful. And if we do that, we're going to be okay. Not perfect, but we'll be okay.
No doubt. Coach, before I let you off, Justin has a question for you. He said, how do you feel about the college football playoff? Should it expand? Should it stay at 12?
Oh, should it expand? Should it stay at 12? I think max 16. I think max 16 because then I think you start to water it down a little too much. And the reason I say max 16 is because I think this year was a great opportunity to see the 10th ranked team going in Miami make it to the finals. I don't think if you went 24, 32, whatever, I doubt the 32nd team would ever make it to the finals. But I think Miami's situation showed that you need to at least do 12. But I think that if you'd have done 16, the Texas and Notre Dame, I mean, you never know. But I think 16 max is the best we can do.
Good stuff, Coach. Appreciate your time this morning. All right, we're going to get the break,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. More of the Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Yep. Hey guys, I appreciate y'all having me on. Man.
We appreciate it, buddy.
I really think that on the public school side, they really got it close. They really did. I know there's some issues there on the private, but maybe it takes a bold move like that to bring people together. And I know you guys do a lot with AHSAA, and I think I'm decently respected by most people in the AHSAA and the school superintendents and things of that nature. But anytime anybody wants to have a conversation about this topic, listen, I'm fighting for all kids. I mean, I just am. I'm fighting for the ones at Benjamin Russell, just like I'm fighting the ones at Beulah or McIntosh or Waterloo or Skyline.
They're all the same, man.
Yep,
they're all the same. And I'll say this, Coach, before you go, I think your point kind of goes to what I said. Again, there's always going to be a cut somewhere. I hear that, but getting those percentages a little bit closer, where you're not extreme on either side. And then, the 40 to 50% range, you get it somewhere close to that for everybody.
You don't have an argument.
You don't really have an argument at that point, and if you just happen to be the lowest one, it is what it is.
Yep.
But when you're 150, 178, 200%, that's not good, man.
Guys,
that's just not good, man.
I'm telling y'all.
That's not fair.
I know some people at Douglas High School. My gosh, guys, Oxford and Clay Chalkville. I'm just telling you, my child will not be on that football field. There's no way. There's no way. You've got Russellville. Listen, and I can say this. My last name is Reyes, but Russellville's about half Hispanic. And I'm going to tell you, we don't play a lot of football, okay? American football. We just don't. But what I'm saying is Russellville is going to have to play Muscle Shoals and Hartselle and that bunch. And my Lord, have mercy. I don't know what to say.
Thank you, Jay. You gave us some good points, and we're going to talk about them. And I'm going to leave you with this. The Coosa Christian point was the best one you gave.
Good Lord, have mercy.
Just to think about it that way with the Pell City matchup.
They jumped on one bus and went over there. One bus.
Yeah. It was one bus of 25 to 30 outstandingly coached athletes from an area that you're pulling from. I could do it. If you gave me an opportunity to go out there, Jay, in our 30-mile radius,
and pull the best.
I could pull the 30 kids that I want to put on the football field.
Oh, you'd win.
I'd be pretty damn good if you gave me enough time to coach.
I mean, hey, but am I lying? Isn't it 80 kids, 80.18 or 81 kids?
80.1, I think.
Okay. They went to Pell City, and it was 28-27, and Pell City scored like on the final play to win that thing. 900 and something kids, y'all.
Let that sink in. So thank you, Jay.
All right.
See you, buddy. Have a good day, buddy.
Bye-bye.
But that's what you have the opportunity to put together, though. And I'm saying look at them both sides. That's impressive. But
you don't need 100. You don't need 400 kids. All you gotta do is go get the right 30.
That's right.
And that's where the argument with again, to bring up the JUSAC thing for ammo. That's what the HSA was saying, is like, you just go grab 30 kids, and then the privates are saying, we all been doing it too. Like, you can hear all this.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in all these conversations, and everybody's at each other's throat about, how you go and get kids to come play at your school. And it's just wild. But man, they got to do a better job. They missed the mark on the percentage thing. Again, that's the only thing I have a problem. Look, I can't hash out, nor can you, the issues for private and public, and they both obviously decided they would all stay under the HSA umbrella, play each other during the regular season, have their own championship brackets. But and if that's a peeing match, for lack of better terms, back and forth with each other, then let them play out. But the percentage thing, they got to fix that, man. They just got to. And you can't go in and say we're just going to divide everything up from the after we get 32 in the top, we're just going to say it's going to be whatever it is, 63, 64, 65, whatever it pans out to be, all the way down to the other 5 classifications. Not fair. It's just not.
How much time do I have, Brett?
He hadn't sent me anything yet, so
Okay.
I know we got.
AHSA can draw. This is Ed. AHSA can draw all the maps and try to make it as competitive as possible. None of that matters if the community doesn't get behind the programs and expect to win. I totally agree. Development's extremely important. Some communities and some coaches in certain sports do it better than others.
No, we're back. I didn't get it. Okay. We're back. So you keep going.
Ed made a point here that I totally agree with. The problems when you let it get away from you, it can really get away. I use this example in Elliott City often. From what I have seen from a development standpoint, I've been around broadcasting for a very long time, and I'm very passionate about high school sports. The best developer I've been around is Danny Horn. Would you agree with that, Brett? The best developer I've been around is Danny Horn. When Danny Horn comes to your community, let me say this one more. When Danny Horn comes to your community, and in the first 2 years he's there, he goes 2-18. You got a development problem. You can point the finger directly in your own face and say, "Man, what in the world have we been doing here to get to this level?" And Brett and I saw it firsthand with Elliott City during
the answer was nothing.
Yeah, I mean it had gone to a level that none of us expected to see in my lifetime. And it took him a while to get even as good a developer as he is. So Ed, you're dead on. But the moment that you let it get away from you a little bit and you don't have a plan and a process in place to keep it strong, you end up in that situation. And that's the worst case scenario that I've seen. Brett, maybe you got a take on that.
I don't. I mean, other than what you just said. I mean, if you get it, when you take a Hall of Fame coach and you bring him in and he can't win with what you have. Now we did lose a lot of really good talented players that the couple of years prior to him getting there we had really good football teams.
Sure.
But what you said was the point, that if you're not continuing to build and you're resting on what you have in the present, and you're not planning for the future, and you're not preparing the ones behind to take their place when those leave, that gets exposed.
And let me jump in a real quick take on. And if you go back to, say, the 5A right now, Ed, where the difference is 520 to 1,040, if you're on that 575 line and you let it get away from you a little bit, it's way more painful than someone that's at the 1,000 mark, because you've got to be really good to compete when you're down, say where we were growing up the entire time, where we're 750, 800 kids in the top 3 playing against Jeff Davis that had 1,900 and Phoenix City that had 1,700. And I'm just bringing up teams that we lost to in the playoffs in nightmarish fashion that were twice as large as we were. We had to do when you're that small in comparison, you have to do everything in your power to make sure that you're developing exceptionally well, because you don't have as many to choose from to come in and just athletically overwhelm the other team. So
right.
I think you're dead on. Boy, it's hard. It's hard. It's easier said than done.
It is. So yeah, I think like I think Jay said, and before we go to our next break, and we got some other things we want to talk about, is that, I know the word recruiting gets thrown around a lot nowadays, and people immediately think, oh, people going to pull, the definition that is going to pull somebody from another community to come play at your school. And that happens. No, there's no question. But like you've said a million times, and I've said too, you build good facilities, you have good coaches in place. Parents in a transient society are going to follow coaches, or they're going to find a way to get their kid to that coach. You call that recruiting if you want to.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want to say. And if that's what your definition of recruiting is, then it is recruiting to you. But there ain't a thing anybody can do to stop that from going on, whether you like it or not. And again, do you want to go play in a beautiful stadium? Do you want to go play where you got top-notch facilities, or do you want to go have to do? And again, it's not a cut on anybody. And some school systems have abilities to do things that others don't. It's not, but you can't go, well, I'm sorry you were born there. You can't ever leave. Can't ever leave that. You can't ever leave this fence. We're going to fence you in, and I hate it. Like you and I've said it a million times. We'd love to go back to the days where Russell was ripping and roaring, and you didn't have to worry about things, and things were different. And it's just not that way anymore. It's just not. And it's not, heck, man, it goes on all over the place. And people have eyes and they have ears, and they can hear and they can see things, and they want to go, I want to go be part of that. Now, again, for all the people doing nefarious things, that's a whole different story. The illegal part, the recruiting part that everybody tends to group that word in with on everything is a big blanket term. That's not right, because society has changed is where I'm going.
Oh, it's a massive change. It's a massive change, and finding perfect answers for the ever-changing world that we live in is impossible. And so, I applaud everyone. I want to close with this. I'm glad I wasn't in the room. I'm glad it wasn't my decision to make, because I think it's a really tough decision to make. And there are people that are going to be upset with you on both sides. And until we get to a point where legislatures and politicians that come out and act like they have every single answer, and they keep us divisive all the time based off of they're the only ones, I guess, with a brain enough to put all of these puzzle pieces together, we're going to always stay contentious with one another. And that's where my disgust is, because we could talk about this for another 10 hours, Brett. We're not going to come up with a perfect answer.
Politicians sometimes, and this is not all of them, there's some really good ones out there. There really are. But a lot of times politicians forget they were elected by the people of their district or their area to be a representative of them, not to get there and decide they rule everything and everything they say and do goes.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be kind of a disclaimer there, that sometimes, and again, I'm not saying all of them, but there's some that decide they get on a high horse, but they forget how they got there. They had to go out.
Yeah. I can see both ways so clear here.
Yes.
I mean, I can see a parent that wants to use those Choose Act funds to take them to a great program because they're in a failing system, and know they don't have the funds to go buy a house in another community, and they want their kid to be able to play based on the new law that's came down, that they can use that and it can maybe change the direction of their kid to give them another opportunity. Man, I see it. Does it mean that all of it's going to be handled that way? No, but none of it's going to always be handled perfectly. But I can also see, the public school side, which is like, are you kidding? I need to go play Coosa Christians, who's put an all-star squad together in football that just went and played a 950 enrollment Pell City to a 1-point game, and they got 80 kids, and I'm a little old team over here, and I'm not doing as much recruiting clearly as they are to get the athletes in. And so I get both ways.
Well, Jay said it best. He goes, well, if you're going to do it that way, then you need to let somebody in Rockford be able to come to Alex City if they want to.
Or somebody in Alex City to go to Rockford.
Vice versa. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Because basically what you're saying at that point is you're eliminating boundaries of where you live.
That's right.
If you're going to let everybody just use whatever and go wherever they want to go and still live in their community, then now you have gotten to where everybody wants to go. And what everybody's accusing everybody of doing is that it doesn't matter that you live in Alabaster, Alabama. If you want to go play football at Bob Jones High School and you want to drive an hour and 45 minutes one way every day to do it, then you have the ability to do it. Let's cut down to the chase here.
Well, and if
we're way behind on a break.
Go ahead and take a break.
And I mean, this next segment we have may be the shortest in history. It may be 30 seconds. All right, stay tuned. More to come right after this.
And Brett, if the law leads you in that direction, then
I just feel like we're creeping that way,
yeah,
because everybody's all caught up and because the rule states you live in the community and all that, and you got to buy. But everybody knows everybody's floating around and everybody's stretching the limit and doing stuff like that. So, like you said, you just get to a point where you stretch thin and you can't monitor it, and you go, well, that's where everybody's just stretching the rubber
It's the
band.
same as the NCAA. It's the same as the NCAA.
No, it's absolutely what it is. It's exactly where it is. From college, everything trickles down, man, to the high school. And look, I want to talk about the Dabo Swinney thing.
Oh man, it was something, wasn't it, to listen to?
Well, guess what? Good for him.
Amen.
Because I'm sick. Like, he's like, dude, I am sick of it. Like, this is what's people are going to have to take one for the team and expose the underbelly, man. They're going to do what Dabo. I'm not a big Dabo Swinney fan. I'm not. I think he's a whiner and all that. But what he did in that press conference, because he had one of his players literally just taken away from him after school had already started, and went back through and just did a almost hour by hour, minute by minute transcription of what went on those text messages and those phone calls, and how many times Ole Miss just kept up in the offer and kept, and then finally the kid cracked. He's like, hell yeah, I'm coming. Of course I'm coming. I mean, it's like, and that is going on everywhere, man. And Ed said, talking about expectations, y'all go listen to Keo Spikes talking to Auburn fans on how embarrassed we all should be letting Ole Miss fly by us as a program. And I mean, I'm with him. I agree. That you and I, what I've said for years. Hell,
well, one of Brett's best takes ever, I use it all the time, was Auburn beating Ole Miss under Gus Malzahn, and we're in the locker room, and you would think that Pat Dye was about to give his post-game speech after the '89 game at Jordan-Hare Stadium, his passionate crying speech that makes all of us cry that are Auburn fans up to this day. And hell, we ain't done nothing but go and beat an Ole Miss team that wasn't any good at all. And Brett's take after that was like, oh, is that really where we are as a program?
I was so mad after that game. I'll never forget. I'd gone outside to cut grass and do something and come back in the latter part and watched how we I'm like, did I miss something? Like, did somebody have a milestone or something that I didn't know about? And it was just y'all went to Oxford and won. Well, congratulations. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. I think that point, what we were saying as we were at break, come back for TV that year, that Gus Malzahn took an Auburn team to Ole Miss and won, and everybody felt like they'd won a national championship. I just felt like when you start lowering your expectations, you become that program. And I had some people berate me for being so critical on Twitter about us winning a football game. I said, man, I don't know about y'all, but I've never grown up where beating Ole Miss wasn't really that big a deal. Like, if we beat Ole Miss, I was like, well, we did what we were supposed to do and we need to move on. And if we rarely ever lost to them, the like 3 times in my life we had ever lost to them, I was depressed. Because I was like, man, something devastating had to have happened, like us turn the ball over 40 times or something like that. But we acted like we'd won a championship, and I was worried that day that our expectations and where we were as a program had dropped. And you should never do that. You should. I'm not saying don't celebrate a win. I'm not saying, but you are a much better all-time program. That'd be like Alabama storming the field if they beat Mississippi State. That ain't happening, man. That ain't gonna happen. And does Mississippi State slip up and beat them every once in a while? Yes. But 99.9% of the time, Alabama's going to roll in there with a JV team and beat Mississippi State. And they should. And it should be that way. And that's the way it should be from now to the end of time. Now, I know with NIL and portal, all that's changed now. We're talking about all of this junk. When we were celebrating for going to Oxford, Mississippi and hooping and hollering because we went 8-4 basically that year. And I've told you numerous times that where Auburn sits as a program all time and the amount of money and effort they put into their program from facilities to coaches to players, all that, versus what Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I'm just using them as an example, do. Those should be wins 8 or 9 times out of 10 for you.
And they have been. They always have been.
And they always have
been. Look at the record.
Right. And everybody always used to complain. So why do we go 8-4 every year? Why can't we get over the hump? Why can't we get it? And I was one of them. I'd go, you know what? There are 6 or 7 games on your schedule every year you should win. Period. Well, almost with your eyes closed. And then the remainder 4 or 5, yes, you split those, but it's not that everybody wants to say, well, we can't get over the hump, beat Alabama and beat Georgia and all that. I'm like, that's not what makes us go 8-4. Alabama and Georgia don't make us go 8-4. Who are the other 2 we're losing to? We'd slip up and lose to Fred Talley at Arkansas, or we'd slip up and lose one over there in Starkville, or we'd slip up and lose one at South Carolina or something like that. That's what would make us 8-4. We were our own worst enemy. The Georgias and Alabamas, you want to try to be as evenly split. You win as many. Of course, we hadn't done that in 2 decades. But the whole goal over history was you win as many as they win, right?
And
kind of keep it competitive.
Let me jump in and say why Brett's on this rant is we had a comment coming in on Facebook from Ed that said, talking about expectations, y'all go listen to Keo Spikes. Talking to Auburn fans and how embarrassed we should be letting Ole Miss football flying by us as a program. That's a good segue, Brett, though.
And let's do it because we got to go to break. We got to go to break, and that segue into this, what we're going to talk
with
about.
Dabo and Golding and all that's going on with the 2 of those programs back and forth over a recruit.
Very, very much so. All right, stay tuned. More to come here on the show right after this.
Give me 1 second. I got to plug a charger in.
All right. Yeah, I don't. That's the way. I mean, I that disgusted me more than anything I've had in a long time. But because you know where you're going, like it's not.
You know where you are, Dan.
I'm not trying to say like when you go over there and think that's a monumental thing, and the reason you celebrate that is because you'd had your season had been crap up to then, and so but then you diminish who you are as a program over time when you do stuff like that. So, and look, now I know that's different now because Ole Miss just went to playoff and, with NIL and the portal and everybody, Texas Techs and the Indianas of the world, you got new blood out there now, man. And I'll never forget Jason Caldwell looking at me at Auburn practice one day saying, hey, man, and he used Purdue as an example. He said, the teams you used to never talk about, probably going to have to start worrying about them if they get the right person in there and they get the right players. He goes, Auburn and Alabama aren't going to just get their pick of this guy anymore. This 5-star that would have never considered going there, they can get enough money thrown at them to get them to coerce them to come there. And Auburn and Alabama and Georgia and all them lose some of those guys. I mean, Vanderbilt just took Georgia's number 1 quarterback away from them.
Yep.
I mean, say what you want to say, but that never would have happened ever in our lifetime if this new day and age hadn't come about with the portal and NIL. That would never have been an option. You never have a kid decommitting from Georgia to go to Vanderbilt ever. So
I love the way Dabo went about it yesterday, though. I'll say that before we start up on it. the timeline,
30 seconds. Yep.
at 4:14, this
Yeah,
happened. It was
the transcription of
it's great.
Text by text at 11:30 this happened, and at 12 o'clock this happened, and yeah, he had everything done.
Well,
Man.
I think when you hear crazy stories like that, and you get the feel for all of the moving parts on the back end and how it all works out,
5 seconds. Yep.
It's eye opening. We sense it, but now we know it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. A couple segments left here in the show. We want to bounce over and talk about, if you haven't seen it, that came out yesterday, Dabo Swinney at a press conference basically talking about the tampering that's been going on by Ole Miss and Pete Golden with some of their players. And he didn't just get on there and say, I'm calling a press conference to point a finger. He had a transcription of all the events that went down and how they went down, and how Pete Golden was texting this particular player while he was in class. Okay. And this player continued to tell through his agent that he was not interested in going to Ole Miss, that he was staying at Clemson, and how the Clemson coaches were in contact with him and making him go back to the compliance office and telling him that he's staying, and, giving all the details, and how the agent said, well, if you'll up his deal here, then we'll give you all the ammo to turn Ole Miss in. And they said, we're not doing that. And then the offers kept coming in, and Ole Miss just kept upping the offer to the point where the kid finally couldn't say no, man. And the kid goes into the compliance office and tells them that he wants to get back in the portal. The coaches try to coerce him not to do it. He kind of goes silent. He kind of says, I need to think about this. And the next time they talk to him, he's in the portal and he's gone.
Yeah, 2 coaches show up actually at his apartment, find him in the driveway.
Yep.
As soon as they get out of the car to go approach the kid, he's like, I'm going to Ole Miss. They try to discuss, get the reasons, leave. He's just, the kid's, he's like any of us. Put yourself in a 19 or 20-year-old shoes.
$3 million.
You would like to think you make a lot of good decisions at that age, but I can assure you I didn't. Maybe you're raising your kids to do it, Brett, but my parents worked really hard to allow me to make good decisions at that age, and I made some really bad ones. So it's
there's a reason your insurance is higher when you're between 16 and 25.
Yeah, it's really bad to see it in a timeline setting like that, how from an agent standpoint and a money back and forth with a communication on, no, I tell you what, I need this. No, they've come back. I heard that you said that, and I told you I'd take that, but they come back and said they double the offer. Where we are in college athletics and where we are in athletics in general is the entire talk of this show today. The majority of it's how do you organize things that are very, very difficult to organize.
This is a prime example of why this is completely and totally out of control. Like the NFL, you can't do that. You absolutely cannot do that, because that kid would have had a signed contract at Clemson. He'd have been in class, in the discussion. You can't break the contract. If you do, there's legal ramifications to it. Ain't no legal ramifications for any of this. Like, oh, well, I'm over here at Clemson making $1 million. Okay, well, we'll give you 2. Well, I'm already enrolled. It don't matter.
What's your buyout?
Yeah, what's the buyout? We'll get you over here. Yeah. No, I'm not interested. Well, yeah, we're going to double your offer now. Does that work? And then we're just going to keep pretty much harassing you to the point where you cave. And the offer's so absurd that you go, well, I'd be stupid not to do this. They won't be this bad. Which in turn, Randy, when I want to flip it around on the other side, and we had this conversation on the podcast this week. I can't remember who it was. But when you clamor at somebody's feet that much, who's got the power now?
Oh, they do. You've
been saying you created a big culture, a bunch of guys walking around going, hey, I need $40,000 to get on this plane to go play this game I've been practicing for all week. And if you don't, I'm staying on. Where are we, man? Like what planet are we on that anybody allowed this to get to this point?
Well, nobody wants to call it what it is, and it's professional sports. Nobody wants to do what you've suggested a couple of thousand times at this point, and that's put a contract in place and make them play the contract out. How you can do it any other way makes no sense to us. I understand from a Title IX and federal funding aspect that they don't want to call it what it is, but how do we keep beating around the bush on this? Where am I missing it, Brett? You got to help me here. I ask you all the time, and I keep expecting you to maybe sleep on it and come back with an answer, but how am I missing federal funding coming down, legislation that's been in place for 40 plus years?
They've ignored it, man. They've completely ignored it.
How?
There's no lawyer out there that has yet to say this is worth attacking in the court system. And somewhere along the lines, there's so many great attorneys out there that haven't done anything yet. Leads me to believe they don't feel like they can win.
They can win it.
That what are they going to say? I mean, they're going to say, and it comes down to the privatization part and the what's going on, the private equity firms and stuff saying that we'll just split away and y'all go do, okay, y'all have your Title IX. We don't need it. I think that's where that's going to go. But then my argument back is, well, where are you going to go play? Because if I'm the colleges at that point, all of them, like the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Auburns, all of them say, you ain't wearing that logo, man. You want to wear that logo and that uniform, we're going to split. It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you a lot of money to rent Jordan-Hare Stadium for the fall, to play for your team to play there. Because no longer, if you're a private equity firm now, you're no longer Auburn, the Auburn Tigers, the Auburn University, the publicly funded university from the state of Alabama. The football program is no longer associated at that point. Okay, so everybody's going to get to the table and throw their cards down. So I've been saying this for months now. The players, the pendulum has swung all the way in the favor of the players. It continues to do this with this Betty Ocko thing and possibly an NFL player that decides they don't get drafted high enough. They come back to college. Well, guess what? If you don't have a place to go play and facilities to go work out in, is that private equity firm going to go build a stadium in a year? They going to go rent somewhere else to go? Does it matter? Do the boosters that support the program all these years, do you think they're going to give money to that? They give money to that school because that team on that field represents where they went to college. See, all that's been lost in this thing. That's why the kids, majority of them that are playing now, that they don't even know what that is about. They don't know what that fight song means. They don't know what the tradition at all these schools mean. Don't matter to them because they ain't there long enough to know what they are.
I can't say it better than you just did.
And that's why it's damaged. That's why
it all stems back to, if you asked me 40 plus years ago, what are my thoughts on Title IX as, say, a program that was important to the school that you and I went to, wrestling. Like, you're going to take Auburn's wrestling team and throw it away because of Title IX. I probably would have said something that I completely disagree with now. But 40 plus years later, it's impossible to look at that and think that that wasn't a major win for women's athletics and for mine and your daughter and others out there. It was a massive win, and it changed the whole dynamic. And now sitting where I am, I'm like, thank the Lord, someone had some vision to say that this is what we should do if public funds are coming down. Now, if you want to privately fund something, I'm not in a WNBA to NBA talk. I'm not talking that. I'm talking if you're at a school where public funds are coming down, it's got to be equal access to both, whether one's a moneymaker and another's not. And we've gone completely away from that.
Totally.
It's mind-numbing.
The thing is it's not even discussed. It's not even talked about. That's the crazy thing. So, all right, let's get to our final break here on the show. This one's flown by. We knew it would. Okay, stay tuned. More to come right after this. But I'm like, look, man, y'all got to bow up. The schools have to bow up and go, y'all sign all the deals you want to sign. You ain't playing in here.
Yeah.
You're not playing in this facility. And if they're going to split it like that, then the schools are going to have to, they're going to have to stand up for themselves. They can't cave. They have power. They do have power because they have the facilities and they have the university and they have that brand and that logo. And until somebody comes in there and buys it from them or buys the rights from it, that's what a private equity firm's having to do. That's what they're doing. Is they're buying the rights to that logo. Well, they need to buy the rights to everything that goes with it. And are they willing to spend $550 million? You know, are they willing to spend $800 million? You know, that Forbes comes out every so often and values all these programs, right? And what they're worth, some in the billions now. The Texases. Auburn's close. Auburn's like 900 and something million. You know, the value, it's a top 10 valued program brand in the country. What private equity firms are willing to pay $1 billion for the rights to have that logo and to control what goes on? That they're trying it in Utah right now. That's what's going on.
Oh, it's wild, man. We've done 2 hours.
It's just disgusting is what it is because, again, these traditions and everything that college football was built upon don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Don't matter. And so let's all quit trying to pretend we're playing an amateur sport for scholarships and that everybody's living in a dorm and everybody's, you know, eating 3 meals a day and they're thankful they get a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie, you know, and some clothes, and that's what they get to come play college football. That ain't where we are anymore, man. That's those days are way over.
And I tell you what, that's not where we are in the high school ranks in a lot of states. And the ones that it's not that way, it's the same way that it used to be in college football, where it really wasn't that way. It's just not openly communicated that. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But you take our kids here in the state of Alabama, and we've seen it with Trent Seaborn and some others over the years.
$1 million offered to him last
having
year.
to turn down NIL money to stay at a high school program. It's wild that's where we are, but we are. And hey, this public-private separation, who knows the direction where that goes? You said, hey,
we don't have any idea.
If you separate them out from an entire organization standpoint, and one chooses they want to do that, and the other chooses not to, then where are you? Because that's what's happened in other states. That's what's going on in states that have had the same split that the state of Alabama did.
Right.
You hear a lot of outcry coming from those states, and oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. Well, we
so did people. Hey, NAFTA. We didn't see this coming. You know, it sounds like a great plan. Yeah. How'd that work out for everybody? All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. Again, great show today. We appreciate Dr. Jose Reyes for being on the show with us for a few segments to kind of give his take. But he just brings such a wealth of knowledge from both a county and a city school system standpoint. He also understands the private side of things. He understands the public side of things. He's done his research. His numbers were phenomenal in showing where things really are and the discrepancy. And I'm with you, Randy. I know there's a cutoff somewhere on all these classes. All I've been saying is do better at getting it closer for everybody. If it's 60%, you know, if it's 70%, let's try to get it. And if that means there's 80 schools in one class and there's only 40 in this class, so be it. Be it.
I think that it's so hard to find something that's going to appease everybody, and I don't have the answer for it. And here's what I appreciate more than anything about Jay and others that I respect that are in a leadership role. Jay's not overly bullheaded. He's not. If you come in there with a take that he agrees with, he's like, you know what? I don't necessarily, that's not the direction I'd go, but I'll listen to you. We have gotten to some point in this society where you can't have differing opinions and find a way to work all work together. And this week is a prime example of that. People have got lines in the sand, and they're saying, I'm unwilling to concede one way or another at all costs. I'm not going to do it. And so you get to the point where you go, okay, well, the only option I've got is to split this thing up. And there are programs out there that are doing the right thing that they get caught in the fray of all of this, and that's the disgusting part of all of it. And there's enough blame to go around.
And let me say one other thing too. And this, I know we talked about state leaders and stuff, but this goes for local too. There's a reason you have school boards. There's a reason you have city councils. There's a reason you have county commissions. There's a reason because they stay in their lane, right?
Sure. Yeah.
They have their own responsibilities. We don't go over and point a finger from a school board standpoint of we think the city ought to be doing this, or the county doesn't come over and say, well, we think that whatever y'all are doing, like you get chosen, elected, appointed to do the best you feel like for that organization. And that, to me, when you start crossing lines and you start pointing fingers at each organization,
mm-hmm.
and you think you got better knowledge about what they're doing
mm-hmm.
than what they're doing, then that's a problem. That doesn't mean you can't cross over ideas. But when you point fingers and you say, why are you doing this? Why would you do this? That doesn't sit well with me. And I would never do it to another organization. I'll just be frank about that. And you have to trust that the people that are selected on each board, council, whatever, are the right people to manage and do the things that are supposed to be done for that particular organization. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, no, and I agree. And you brought that up earlier from the state government down. And I know that that's partly what you're talking about here. It's like, we hear you, Ainsworth. We see it. But to think that you have all of the answers.
Well, apply for the executive director's job, Will. It was open.
That's the point that, but you thinking that you've got all of the answers without actually telling us exactly what those answers are is
right.
Not benefiting anyone. And we end up in a situation. So that at the final take on it is, I hate the public and private are separating. I don't like it. I think it's bad for the kids in the state. I think it's going to set a precedent that one or the other may benefit massively from this. Which side? I don't know.
We don't know yet.
I can hear both ways, but the problem is one could.
Yeah.
And you look back on it 5 to 10 years from now, you may go, oh my gosh, I kind of saw that coming, but I didn't see it going as bad as it could go.
I don't think people have foreseen what's happened in college athletics. Let me close for TV.
Yeah.
We'll keep it up for a second. It's going to wrap us up. Again, we appreciate all of you watching each and every Saturday. We'll be back next Saturday for more of the Saturday Sports Countdown. For Randy and Brett saying we've enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
But then again, I'll close with this. But then again, if I was sitting in a community in 3A that was having to play a team that I know was stacking it massively from a private standpoint or a public standpoint, I'm going to think about it different than if I'm at a school that's winning constantly.
Right.
It's
like what Jay said. Jay said when
you're dominating where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's totally biased is my point, though. It's like there is no perfect answer.
No.
So that way there can't it can't be a moving target. That's the problem. But every time we get into this 2-year cycle, it's like a constant moving target. And that's back to my set a number and don't change that number, whether I'm right or wrong on the percentages or not. It's just like, just tell me what it is and don't have a moving target.
Right.
Because if there wasn't a moving target this year, let's go back to locally where we sit. Ben Russell's dropping in enrollment. It's been dropping in enrollment. It's been right there on the edge for a very long time. But right there on the edge, finally, if the moving target doesn't change, finally dropped to where it worked out for us that we were going to be the tops in our classification, which is like when Brett first started broadcasting games many moons ago. When we were the largest school in the classification, man, you don't know how easy. I remember having, I don't think Coach Brooks would mind me saying, but I went and I love Coach Brooks, and I went and met with him maybe when the first year or two that we dropped down,
Right.
Brett, and he said, Randy, he said 90% of these games, man, from what we're used to in 6A, it's like you can't say it to the kids, but it's a walk in the park because we're still thinking that we're at this level, but we've dropped down to this level. And so now the moving target, though, Brett, has been Russell, which would have been one of the top 5 enrollment schools
We're
in
the
Class
bottom.
5A.
We're bottom 11.
Yeah. So the moving target
Hey,
completely changes it all.
Again, not to for bias purposes here. You do more of an even split, and then it works out. But again, it's going to be like that for everybody. But Ben Russell returned in a number of 570.55. The bottom is 520.95.
Yeah. And hey, here's 2 cycles ago. It's worse. 2 cycles ago.
It was 670 last time, wasn't it? For Ben Russell.
We were up 670, but 2 cycles ago we were at 608.
Yep.
The number was 598.5. Ben Russell missed going to 5A by 9 students in 3 grades. 3 students a grade is the number that they missed there. So you're sitting on, we've been sitting on that line. I mean, it's a variation of whether you're going to be at probably right now consistently Ben Russell's a 630 to 640, but you're going to have in a school system like Ellick City's, you're going to have a grade or 2 that comes through that's small. That's not, we've always heard Brett will say this. He said, man, the 3rd grade class is the biggest class that's ever been in the system. When they get up there, there's no chance that you're going to be down. But then the 4th grade class may be one of the smallest that we've ever had in the system. It just depends on where that is. And unfortunately, where that is there is right there on the line. Well, you were going to get the benefit of staying on that line for the first time in a while here, but then the damn rules change again.
There you go. Hey, congratulations. We're going to throw this in there.
Yeah.
Here's the teams that down here at the bottom, and I think Jay was spot on, that have, I mean, none of these teams have a chance to win. St. Clair County, Alberta, Boaz, Arab. I mean, Ben Russell's really about the only one down at the bottom part of this. I would say Ramsey's in there. Ramsey's at 530. So Ramsey definitely could compete if they had the right. They've done it before and proven it. But outside of Ben Russell and Ramsey down here in the bottom 15, ain't a team down there got a shot. Not one shot.
And Brett
ain't gonna play Clay Chalkville and beat them, man.
And Brett, you're just talking about football. It's worse in the other sports. Why is it not worse in football for Ben Russell? Because we're a football school. Everybody in this state knows who that brand is, and like it or dislike it, some are going to find their way to you because they want to be part of that brand and that school. Other sports, buddy, good luck. I mean, because you don't have that benefit. So it's really hard. If at the end of the day, and I got to jump off because I'm heading to Montgomery right now to coach a basketball game. But Brett, at the end of the day, what the worst thing that could have happened if you're a Ben Russell fan happened. The very worst, because the public and private split for them took the 7 classifications down to 6. Which made the discrepancy in the number worse when we moved to 5.
It did.
Whereas when the number that came in, we would have been one of the top 5 enrollment schools again in 5A if they don't split the things out. So it's the worst thing possible that could have happened.
If they do the percentages right, Ben Russell would have gotten in there too.
And that's a moving target, but not even with the moving target, they would have been in 5A.
They sure would have if they'd have just stuck with it.
Yeah,
they just don't. And if they'd have done what Jay said, if they'd have just they kept 7 classifications,
same thing.
It would have been fine. So, all right,
great show. Thank you, Jay. If you're still tuning in, we appreciate everybody out there for commenting. Ed, I'm looking up Justin. There's about 10 of y'all that comment throughout the show, and I personally want to tell you, even if I don't agree with you or you don't agree with me on everything, I'm so thankful that you comment and give us talking points, because you just don't know how much it helps us to have a differing point of view, because Brett and I talk all day, every day. I mean, my kids, when I pop on the phone with them, they got a nickname for Brett, and he's there. There he is. There's Donald Duck right there, and he's yapping away, and he's got a nickname for them. So we have a lot of times, which is kind of funny because we had a couple of spats on air this week, but we talk with each other so much that our opinions kind of roll into the same one because I take some that he's yelled at me on, and he takes some, and at the end of the day, we kind of merge in together with our takes. So I don't want the same take. I want people to tell me where I'm wrong, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
I agree. And again, appreciate all of you out there. Y'all have a great, safe, wonderful weekend. Let's see. Sum it up. They didn't come up with a cure. They simply just put a Band-Aid on it.
Amen, Trey. I don't think it's over, buddy. I do not think it's over. Tell Caleb congratulations. 19-0, by the way. His sons over at Hoover, Brett, their middle school team just won the championship, and they went 19-0 this year. And tell Caleb I'm real proud of him, and
glad to say they're dropping off.
I didn't send a message to Trey last night, but I wanted to say the rich get richer in that sport. Man, they're a beast. Hoover knows how to produce them, and so tell them congrats. I got to jump off.
All right, guys, we'll see y'all. All right, see you.